It is such an honor and a privilege to be sitting here today with the President-Elect of the AHA, Mr. Kenneth Pomeranz. Kenneth, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. It's really nice to be here.
You're a very busy man. Day 2 of the conference. How's it going so far?
It's going very well. I thought the first plenary last night was terrific. I've mostly been in business meetings, but they're going well as well. We know we have a lot of challenges, but we've got a very good group of people sitting around the table, both staff and council, working on them, and we've got a really good membership that I think is increasingly realizing that this is a moment of both unusual opportunities and unusual challenges.
And your vision, let's talk about your vision moving forward for the year.
What I would say to start with is, if you think of history as a discipline, we're doing extraordinarily well. Really fascinating work is being done in areas that were barely touched 20 years ago. Kinds of work are being done that I think many people would have said couldn't be done, that we just didn't have the tools to do that. Thanks to digitization, students have access to an extraordinary range of materials, sitting there at their own desk that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you had to be at Harvard or Yale to have that stuff even on your campus, never mind in your dorm room. But as a profession, we face really serious challenges.
And let's talk about some of those, the major issues you think that you all are facing.
Well, I think the last half century, or maybe more, we've gotten used to a world in which history took place in which the study of history took place for the most part in institutions that have been pretty stable for a long time. In universities that either had stable public funding streams or large endowments, in museums that again had a fairly stable relationship to their funding sources, and in journals where everybody knew how the journal worked. There was no such thing as just taking your stuff and posting it on the web and seeing who might read it. And we're now facing a world in which all those assumptions are turned upside down, both in some cases for good reasons, right? I can throw an idea out there and get reactions from all around the world in a way that was inconceivable before, but also in very scary ways. A large and increasingly large percentage of history is being taught by people who are not regular tenure track faculty. Many of them are very fine teachers, but they work under very different conditions. States with hard-pressed budgets are saying, can we do this cheaper? Can we do this cheaper? Many of them are wondering, why do we need things besides science, technology, medicine at all? We face real challenges in persuading a broader public that we still matter, and that in some ways I think we matter more than ever. In some ways, the most important questions for a conference like this now are the ones about the future of the profession. What's our response to digitization and all that it means for copyright? What's our response to a world in which more and more history is taught by people who are not on tenure track? And that can only be worked out, I would argue, at the level of the AHA. A smaller group in medieval history or whatever can't decide that for the profession. Only this group can.
And let's talk about jobs, things that are changing. Jobs, big focus at the conference this year. Talk about how the types of jobs and the roles of historians, once again, are continuing to change.
People with history training have always worked in a variety of places, right? In some cases, you could label their job as clearly historical, even if they weren't at universities, right? There were people in museums, there were people running archives, there were people doing all sorts of things. But there are also all sorts of people in jobs using the skills that we think history is very good at developing all the time without thinking of themselves as steeped in those skills or needing those skills. And part of what we are trying to do is both make a stronger pitch to employers in a large variety of areas, that we teach skills that are very, very important, and also get a conversation going in which we ask, all right, are there ways to tweak our training so that that's more apparent to people? And do the people who are now in those training programs want to see that kind of tweaking occur?
And how do you get the younger generation excited about history?
If by the younger generation you mean sort of the kids who are now in K-12 now, yeah, it's going to vary for everybody. Kids are going to respond to different things. There's an increasingly sophisticated scholarship about how people learn history, and it turns out that the way we learn is very discipline specific. And we can't just assume that what works to get kids engaged in math is also going to work to get, and we have to talk to the people developing that literature who are coming out of psychology and so forth. But we also have to recognize that even beyond that literature, it's going to be pretty idiosyncratic. And to some extent, you have to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And we have to give teachers at, I would argue, all levels, the freedom to experiment with throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, which is very hard in today's political environment.
Well, I could sit here for hours with you. Fascinating. I wish I'd had a history teacher like you, by the way. Fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know you've got a busy few days here in New Orleans. I hope you do get a chance to at least enjoy a little bit of the city while you're here.
Well, my wife says we're coming back, so.
Wonderful.
Because she couldn't make it down this time. So
oh, wonderful. We hope you come back soon. Mr. Kenneth Pomeranz.
Ken.
Ken,
Okay.
all right. President-Elect of the AHA. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.